Good morning, LifeBridge. It's so great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us. Let's stand together. We're going to celebrate baptism this morning. Let's put your hands together and worship. Come on. I saw Satan fall like lightning. I saw darkness run for cover. But the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. Hey! I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Yes, I do. It's still the miracle that I just can't get over. My name is registered in heaven. Oh, my praise belongs to you forever. We say, this is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Sons and daughters, they bought with blood and washed in water. Oh, sing the praises of the Spirit, Son and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Hey! Oh, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Come on, we're raised to life in Jesus. He's given us purpose. We say, if I'm not dead, you're not done. And greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. We believe it. And greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. You're not. Oh, you're not. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, then you're not done. The greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. Oh, we believe it. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. Oh, I'm alive. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify by Jesus Christ the righteous. I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. is who you are. You are my worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. That is who you are. That is who you are. Oh, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. 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 Yes, that is who you are. That is who you
That's right. That's incredible that we get to come in here and know that is who our God is. He never stops working. He is a way maker. And even as we're declaring those truths, singing those truths, there's probably things in your life that you reflect on and know that he's made a way for us. And so this morning, we're going to take a time of communion to remember what God ultimately did, sending his son, Jesus, to make a way for us to be in relationship with him. So as you came in, you could have grabbed a communion packet. If you didn't, feel free to slip back to the back and grab a communion packet, and you go ahead and have a seat. And right now, we want to remember what Jesus did for us, how God made a way for us to be in relationship with him. And if you're new to communion, this is simply doing what Jesus challenged the disciples to do. Do this in remembrance of me. And so in this packet, there's a wafer and there's juice on the bottom. And what that represents, the wafer representing the bread, representing the body that was broken, Jesus' body that was broken on the cross. And the juice represents his blood, the blood that was spilled for us on the cross as well. And so as we're going to take a moment, and in this moment, I want us to just reflect what Jesus ultimately did for us. And just remember who he is in our lives and thank him for that. So as you have your packets, let's go ahead and open the top. Again, this wafer represents his body that was beaten for us. Let's take this in remembrance of him. Now we can open the bottom piece. Again, this juice represents the blood that was shed on the cross for us. Let's take this together. So Father, right now we say thank you. Thank you for making a way for us to be able to be in relationship with you. Thank you for sending your son, Jesus, to die on the cross for us. And Lord, as we declare these truths this morning, as we worship you this morning, let us just be reminded of how good you are, that you make a way, even when we don't see it, even when we don't feel it. God, you are moving. So God, whatever storm we're walking through, we look to you and we know that you're with us. We ask that in your name, amen. All right, LifeBridge fam, how we doing this morning? Good stuff. Hey, incredible morning so far. We've gotten to celebrate life change through baptisms. Incredible, right? That's right. And so, hey, we're glad you're in the room with us. If you're online, thanks for joining in. We're pumped that you're with us. Hit us up in the chat. We'd love to know that you're here with us online. And so for some of you in the room, this may be one of your very first times with us, maybe the very first time with us. And that probably leaves you having questions, wanting to know more. And I say that in the sense of that's where me and my family are at as well. We're new to this area. We're starting a new school and things are just new. And it leaves us wondering where things are at, and it leaves us with questions. And so I just say that for you to know, we get that. We would love to help you take next steps. We'd love to connect with you, answer any questions that you may have. And so as you slip out in the back of our lobby area, there's a neon blue sign that says new here. We would love to answer any questions, connect with you, just get to know you. And so make sure you swing by there so we can have that opportunity to shake your hand and truly get to know you. Another way that we can continue to worship this morning, and if you call LifeBridge home, is through our giving and tithing. And there's two simple ways to do that. In the back of the room, there's some boxes. You can drop your tithe in there, or this week or anytime, you can hop online at lbcc.org and click on the giving tab and simply be able to give that way. And another way that you can just continue to worship God. And here's something else that's exciting that's coming up. September 16th, I'm building up to it. Fellas, where you at? Can I hear you, fellas? Where you at? Good stuff. Fellas, we have our men's event, and it's called Hold the Line. You do not want to miss it. It's going to be an incredible time. As we're going to be out in the parking lot, we're going to have some fun together. I'll probably beat a couple of you in cornhole, but then we're going to come into this room and we're going to be able to worship. We're going to build community, and we get to hear our lead pastor's vision for us as men, and it's going to be an incredible night. And so I said that for the fellas. Ladies, your turn. Where are you at? There we go. Okay. Hey, you sound a little more excited right now. And so here's 2 steps I have for you. There's 2 things that you can be involved in this. Number 1, you could come and serve and be a part of the night, helping us create an amazing environment for God to move. Here's the second way. There's a QR code. You can scan it and sign your husband up. Go ahead and do that. All right, so here's the deal. You laugh right now. Man, my wife will sign me up for random things at times. On Facebook Marketplace, she'll text me, hey, can you go pick this up? So it's a real thing, all right? But go ahead and sign your husband up so he can be a part of an amazing night where God moves in a mighty way, where we build community and have some fun together. Don't miss it. It's going to be incredible. And here's one last thing for you. On the screen, you're going to find out more about some of our mission partners. They're called Go Ministries. Check this out.
In the early 80s, Ramon Gabriel, along with his wife Tata and their 6 children, moved to the community of Olla del Caimito in Santiago, Dominican Republic. Out of compassion and obedience, they planted a church and launched a school. A few years later, Ramon met Brooke Brotzman, an American pastor with a passion for the global church. A partnership was formed, and Go Ministries was born. For more than 30 years, Go Ministries has focused on empowering local leaders in the Dominican Republic and Haiti to redeem people, renew communities, and restore creation through 4 focused areas of ministry: Go Community Development, Go Medical, Go Sports, and Go Church Planting. Now the global vision for Go Ministries is to plant 1,000 churches in 10 years all over the world through discipleship, mission, and multiplication.
Yeah. So Go has been a partner of LifeBridge's for a number of years. Many of you actually have been on a trip going down to the Dominican Republic to serve with them. We financially support Go. We've done that for years, and we've sent trips and teams down there to serve. And what we're going to do is in 2023, we're going to start doing that again. So next year, we have 3 different trips going down to the Dominican Republic to serve there. It is an incredible partner. And the 3 trips that we have, literally everybody in our church can go on one of those trips. There's a role for you to play in every single one of those trips. So right after this service today, right across the hallway, we're just gonna have a brief high-level meeting about what's gonna happen in those next 3 trips. If you go to that meeting, you're not signing up to anything yet. You're just gonna hear a little bit more about what we're gonna do and how you can be involved. So I would highly encourage you, right after service, go across the hallway, hear more about what's going on with Go and how you can be a part of that, because every single one of us has a role in that. I'm pumped for that. Now, let me ask you a question. We got a lot going on right now. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have a streaming service like Netflix, Apple TV, Paramount, Hulu? How many of you have a streaming service? Okay. How many of you have all of those that I just mentioned? How many of you think you might have a problem? Okay, yeah, all right. Here's why I'm bringing this up, and this has a reason. Next week, we are starting a brand new series that I am super excited about. Next week, we're going to start walking through the Gospel of John. John is my favorite gospel by far. I get people asking me all the time, hey, I want to start reading the Bible. Like, where do I start? Do I start in Genesis? And usually what I'll tell people is, hey, if I'm you, I'd start in John. John is really like Jesus' best friend, which is pretty stinking cool. And John is writing this gospel and what all happened, and he's really answering one question through the entire gospel. And that question is, who is Jesus? Like, who is this guy? So we're going to start walking through it. In fact, we're asking all of our groups to go through this at the same time. This is a great time for you to sign up online in one of our groups. You go to our website, you can see them, or go to New Here afterwards, get in a group. We're going to walk through this content together. Our staff team is going to send out questions 24 hours after, maybe even earlier than that, 24 hours after each message that I preach. So we're going to walk through what we talked about here on Sunday. Man, it's such an awesome time to get connected. Also, we're all about inviting people all the time. Like there's never a bad time for you to bring somebody with you here, a friend, neighbor, coworker. We want to always be inviting people. I can't think of a better series to start doing that than John. Like anybody that you have in your life, whether they've grown up as a follower of Christ or they've never been to church before ever, invite them to come with you to this series because almost everybody will say yes to a personal invitation. Now, the reason why I asked you about the streaming services is we're going to go through John a little bit differently. You can't go through it slow. There's so much richness in it. So instead of doing like 55 weeks straight, which I think I would lose my mind, and we want to be able to talk about more things, we're going to break it up into seasons. So starting next week will be season 1 of the Gospel of John. And we're going to go from next week all the way up until Christmas. And I think we're only going to get through chapter 7. I think that's as far as we're going to go. That's season 1. Then we're going to take a break, and then in the spring, after we do a couple series, we're going to pick up and we're going to start right where we left off. That will be season 2. And then we'll do season 3. Since we binge shows all the time on Netflix, we're going to binge the Gospel of John. That's what we're going to do, okay? So get excited. That's going to be next week. But today we are finishing off this series that's called Kingdom Culture, which has really been a vision of our values. If you missed any of it, you can catch up on our website. And the reason why we would use an entire series to walk through all 6 of these is because we want to get clarity on who are we and what kind of culture do we want to continue to build on here. And also because values are really what you believe put into action. Values allow you to end up somewhere on purpose. And where we want to end up is a healthy culture over and over and over again. Because the culture of any group, whether that's a team that you're on, whether that's your family, your school, a friend group that you have, your office, your organization, especially the church, the culture of any group is either healthy and moving towards more health, or it's toxic and it's becoming unhealthier. The culture of every organization, every group is dynamic. It is never static. It is never staying still. A healthy culture here, our values allow us to continue to have a healthy culture and build on it so that we arrive on it over and over and over again. And really, this has got to be foundational. A healthy culture comes before strategy, comes before tactics. For a church, strategy and tactics are around how are we going to accomplish the mission of introducing more people to Jesus and leading them in their next steps with him. How are we going to see more transformation all over northern Colorado by reaching people, letting them experience the love of Jesus, connecting people, growing people, and then putting that on repeat over and over and over again? Man, as a leader, I love that kind of stuff. I love thinking about strategy around that kind of stuff. But I think it was Peter Drucker who said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture is incredibly important. So is strategy. Strategy is so important. But people don't experience strategy. They experience culture. When people come here to LifeBridge, or when they interact with you during the week, they don't experience our strategy. They experience our culture. So we always want to be building a better and healthier culture. We always want to be multiplying our people, our leaders, our resources, our serving teams, our groups, multiplying everything, including multiplying our health. Because a healthy culture is the environment where gospel transformation can take place. If our church is toxic, that is the number one roadblock that will prevent people being introduced to Jesus. Hands down. A toxic church will never introduce people to Jesus. They might introduce people to a false version of Jesus, which is even more detrimental. But if we're toxic, we'll never introduce people to Jesus. And if we're not introducing people to Jesus, how are they ever going to experience the good news? How are they ever going to experience the joy and the transformation that happens when you're in a relationship with Jesus like we know about? And if people aren't in a relationship with Jesus, how are they ever going to be connected to the church where they get to live out the purpose that he has for them and use the gifts that he's given them? And if they're not connected to the church, we're moving us forward and making us better and seeing the mission fulfilled. How are we ever going to reach people? And if we're not reaching people, how many people right now today in northern Colorado are facing a Christless eternity? A healthy culture, our values let us multiply a healthy culture so that multiplication of disciples happen. Our values allow us to keep growing the right things. Now, speaking of growth, I was reading an article this week on forest succession. Forest succession. I thought this was fascinating, such an interesting article. Let me set it up this way. If you ever walk through a huge and lush forest, or you look at one on Instagram, or you see a picture of one, do you ever wonder, how did that grow like that? I've been to Muir Woods, right outside of San Francisco. Anybody else been to Muir Woods? Yeah, okay, so a number of people. All right, Muir Woods, incredible place. It's where the redwoods are. Trees so massive that you can literally drive your car through. If you've ever seen Return of the Jedi, spoiler alert, the movie's like 40 years old, so you should have watched it by now. Spoiler alert, it's where the speed bike scene is, that whole scene, that's in Muir Woods in California, that forest. Incredible place, beautiful. Well, forest succession is the process for something like Muir Woods coming into existence. Basically, it is a barren area of land that has the potential to grow and develop over time a complex and diverse forest. And scientists will say that there are 4 different phases to forest succession. The first phase is this. It's the disturbance phase. And what happens during the disturbance phase is some event takes place where there's an interruption to the life cycles of the trees there. That could be logging, it could be a forest fire, it could be a hurricane that just wipes out the forest. Something happens, a disturbance occurs that clears out that land. That's the disturbance phase. Second phase is called the open fields phase. And what happens is almost immediately after the disturbance, you got this barren area of land now. Almost immediately after that disturbance, different plants will start to grow very quickly. And the plants that will grow there are very tough. They're hardy plants. They're able to survive really unfavorable conditions like, direct sunlight, exposure to direct sunlight all day long, pounding wind and rains, long periods of dry and hot weather. They're able to survive all that. And what those plants do in that phase is they help prepare the soil. They put nutrients back in the soil. They allow the moisture to stay in the soil longer, which stabilizes the soil. It's a really important process, a really important phase. And after that's gone on for a little while, then the third phase comes into play, which is called second force growth. Why it's called that, I don't know. Second force growth comes into play. And in this phase, you got trees that are starting to grow, starting to sprout up and grow quickly. And you've got a canopy that's starting to form. Not completely yet, but it's starting to form, which means now there's more of a protective environment because of this canopy that more sensitive plants and more sensitive trees can start to grow in. And the soil continues to become richer and richer. And then after some more time, it gets into the fourth phase. That's old forest growth. At this point, you've got mature trees, big, old, massive trees, full canopy is in place. You've got all kinds of plant life thriving. You have all different kinds of bird species and animal species. You've got a true forest that has grown, and it is a diverse, incredible ecosystem. That's how a place like Muir Woods comes into existence. And I think that analogy of forest succession, I think that's exactly where we're at right now. Both as individual people and definitely as a church at large in the United States. I think we're right in the middle of that analogy. We're in the middle of forest succession. We just went through a massive disturbance. That was what the pandemic was. The pandemic wiped so much out, so much pruning. I think that a lot of the things that happened with the church, not just LifeBridge, but churches in North America, I think the pandemic, this is my personal opinion, I think the pandemic was the Holy Spirit pruning a lot of stuff. So much stuff got cleared out in our own individual lives and in our church. It was a massive disturbance that most of us have never seen before. I mean, if you want to go back in history, maybe the last disturbance of this kind of magnitude was World War II. 9/11 didn't do this much. The 60s didn't do this much. I mean, some of you are alive for that. I wasn't, just saying. I'm kidding. I realized as soon as I said that, I want to take that back. But if you really go back in history, we haven't seen a disturbance like this since what? The Great Depression? World War II? Pearl Harbor? Massive disturbance just happened in the last 2 years. Now I personally think we're in phase number 2. We're in the open fields phase. Where, we still have exposure to direct sunlight, pounding wind and rains. Life is still hard, right? But there's so much growth that's already happening. I mean, I'm just looking at our individual church. We continue to grow every single month, which is awesome. But not just numerically, we continue to grow with people in their personal lives. And we just saw more baptisms today. Like right now, we have more baptisms this year than we had last year. And last year, we had more baptisms than our church has had in years. People taking steps, stories of transformation, all that stuff is happening, but life is still hard right now, right? You just feel like you're getting beat up. We're in that open space phase right now. And if you're here, if you're a part of our church and you're going through this with us together, we're making the soil better right now so that more people can grow, so that more people can turn into trees, and we're planting a forest right now. That's where we're at right now. We want to be about stimulating growth, not just numerically, but more importantly, stimulating growth in people, in families, in places all over northern Colorado. That's the phase that we're in. We want to multiply. And multiplication is really at the heart of our last value, which is plant a forest. Here's what we mean by plant a forest. We will plant trees that we may never enjoy the shade of by developing and investing in and multiplying and empowering people. We will plant trees that we may never enjoy the shade of by developing, investing in, multiplying, and empowering people. So where that comes from is Matthew 25. Matthew 25, Jesus is talking about what the kingdom of heaven is like right now. He's really talking about what the church is supposed to be getting after. And to explain it, he tells a story. Maybe you've heard this story before, but this is a great story about what we're supposed to look like right now. This is Matthew 25, 14 through 30. I'm going to read the whole thing. Jesus talking. For it, meaning the kingdom of heaven, for it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them with his property. To one he gave 5 talents. A talent was roughly 20 years worth of wages. So a talent's a lot. To one servant he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. And so did the one who had 2 talents. He made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went, dug in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of those servants came back to settle his accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I've made you 5 more. And his master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter the joy of your master. And the one who had 2 talents came forward saying, Master, you delivered 2 talents to me. I have made 2 more. And his master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter the joy of your master. And he who also had received the 1 talent came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you didn't sow and gathering where you didn't scatter seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here's what is yours. But his master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and you knew that I gather where I haven't scattered seed? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers. And in my coming, I should have received what was my own with some interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given. Meaning, if you do well with what you have, you will receive more, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, who hasn't done well with it, even what he has will be taken away. So there's a lot right there. There's a lot to unpack. Everyone has been given talents by God. Everyone in this room, everyone joining us online, you have been given different talents, different gifts and experiences and strengths. This also includes your money, your time, your resources, your relationships. Everything that you have has been given to you by God. Everyone here has different things and at different amounts. Well, why don't I have what they have? Or why don't I have as much as they have? Don't do that. Don't play the comparison game. Because in life, comparison is nothing more than a distraction and a discouragement. Comparison is nothing more than a distraction and a discouragement. Remember from a couple of weeks ago, one of the values we walked through. Row in the same direction, right? You have been uniquely made. God has given you unique things on purpose. What the question that we need to answer is, are you taking what the master is giving you, or are you taking what God has given you, and are you putting it to use? Or are you like the fool that was the 3rd servant, and you're doing nothing with it? Which means you're doing nothing to further God's kingdom. The first 2 servants, they took what was entrusted to them They weren't entitled to anything. There is no entitlement here. They took what they were entrusted. The master gave them his stuff, and they went at once, and they planted a forest. So in this story, the master represents Jesus. Then you and I get to pick. Do we want to be like one of the first two servants? Do we want to plant a forest? Do we want to see the kingdom of heaven? Do we want to see the church multiplied? Or do we want to be like the third guy? And just take what's been given to us, hold on to it, do nothing with it, bury it in the ground so that we can stay comfortable and avoid any risk. Like, that's what's going through my mind every time I read this section of Scripture. So I want to ask 3 questions that come from this. And depending on how we answer these 3 questions, both all of us as individuals and then also collectively as a church, depending on how we answer these 3 questions, will determine which one of the servants we're like. And also it's going to determine, are we planting a forest? Or are we just cool being in an open, barren field? The first question is, are we urgent? Are we urgent? Man, Jesus said, hey, the first servant went at once and traded with him. And he doubled him. He went at once. This guy had a fire lit underneath him. He was urgent. The same question is true for us. Are we urgent to introduce people to Jesus? Are we urgent to see people experience the love of Jesus? Are we urgent to see people become followers of Jesus and get connected to his church? Are we urgent with what we have? Because here's the reality, and if you've been here before, if you've been here for a while, you've heard me say this before. This is the reality. For some people, this life is the closest they will ever come to hell. And for other people, this life is the closest they will ever come to heaven. I'm not okay with that. I hope you're not either. We all love Colorado. We live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. We all love Colorado. But do we love the people that live here? All of the people. Not just your friends and family. Not just the people that are Christians. Not just the people that agree with you. Do you love the people that are on the opposite side of the political aisle from you? Do you love the people that have a different worldview than you, a different lifestyle than you? Do you love the people that think you're crazy or think you're unintelligent or they think you deny science or they think you're the problem or maybe they even hate you because you follow Jesus? Do you and I love those people? Because Jesus does. The reason our church is here is because Jesus does. Now, love doesn't mean the watered down version of the word that our culture uses, where we accept and affirm everything. That's not love. That's not love at all. Love means you graciously tell someone you care about what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. Love is the genuine desire to see all people blessed. Love is the full truth and the full grace of God. Love is always, always, always action-oriented. We hit on that a lot last year in Contrary to Popular Belief. If we are urgent to take everything that we have, our gifts, our strengths, our talents, everything, if we're urgent to take those things to see people, places, and culture transformed here to look more and more like the kingdom of heaven, if we're urgent to see more people experience the love of Jesus and become followers of Jesus, if we're urgent to see Northern Colorado transformed only through Jesus, if we take everything that we have to see that happen, that's a good sign that we love not only Colorado, but the people that live here. And the way that's going to play out is through our investment, which is question number 2. Are we investing? Are we investing? And the first 2 servants, they're given 5 and 2 talents. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of responsibility. They doubled it. Jesus said they went at once and traded with them. They put them to work. They were investing. Are we investing what we've been given? Investment requires proactivity. Like, we cannot be passive. We cannot think, well, somebody else is going to do that. Somebody else is going to step up there. Somebody else is going to join that serve team. Somebody else is going to invite those people to a group. Somebody else is going to invite those people to church. Somebody else is going to introduce that person to Jesus. Somebody else is going to tithe. Somebody else has that gift and will use it. We can never talk about somebody else when it comes to investing to plant a forest. The somebody else always has to be you. Always. Somebody else always has to be me. Always. Investment requires proactivity. Investment requires wisdom. Investment requires a desired outcome. For us, that's multiplication. And investment requires risk. Because whenever you take something that you have and invest it, you risk losing it. Your time, your talent, your money, your strengths, your gifts, your relationships. To invest that to see more people introduced to Jesus and see more people grow. To see people, places, families, culture transform to the point where it looks like the kingdom of heaven here. That takes a lot of investment. That's a big vision. That requires risk. Like we'll have to risk opposition. We'll have to risk relationships. And we might lose those. I lost a relationship this week. Somebody told me they were out. Just because I wouldn't cave on something that's in Scripture. They said, I'm gone, I'm done with you. We'll risk being ridiculed. We'll risk our own comfort and convenience. There has to be risk. But there's a quote, man, I love this quote. It's from John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones is the founder of the United States Navy. He said, those who will not risk cannot win. Those who will not risk cannot win. That's a quote that I've held on to for years now, especially when we were transitioning to come out here. It was a big risk. Where we're going to leave everybody we know, everything we've ever known, all the work we've done. We're going to leave that and go to a place in Colorado that we've never been to before. We don't know anybody. We're going to risk all of that to do this. That's a big risk. But those who will not risk cannot win. And 1 Corinthians 9 says that I am free from all. Even though I'm free from all, I become a servant to all so that I might win more of them. Who's them? Everybody in northern Colorado. Win them to what? Win them to Jesus. Man, if we want to win people to Jesus, that requires risking what we've been given, which isn't ours anyway. It requires risking what's been entrusted to us to multiply it by investing. You have one life to invest. You've got one life to invest. That's it. Are you investing it in a way that has a maximum impact to see more people experience the love of Jesus and become followers of Him? Are you investing like that? Everything that we do as a church is aimed at that end. And it requires all of us. The more of us that get together and we do this together and multiply together, man, the greater the force is going to be. But there's still two questions that need to be answered within this one. What's still to be determined is who's going to come with us. If we have momentum right now as a church, so many of you have gotten involved. You're saying, I'm all in. We've gotten out of the boat together. We're rowing in the same direction. We're making it better. We're planting a forest. But the question is, who's still going to join us? Maybe that's you. Maybe you need to invite some people in to be a part of this. And the second to be determined question is, how amazing is the forest going to be that God grows out of what we planted? So the last question is, are we faithful? Are we faithful? Did you notice how in this story that Jesus tells, the first two servants, they did not get praised for the results? Did you notice that? Like the first guy's given 100 years worth of wages, 100 years, and he doubles it. That's legit. That's the guy that you want a part of your business. That's the girl that you want doing your investments for you, right? But they don't praise the results. Faithfulness is what gets praised. Well done, good and faithful servant. Not results-driven servant, not successful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. Not you've been successful, not you've brought a great return. No, you've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. And we live in a results-driven culture, don't we? Right? And there's a purpose to that. It's a good thing, right? If you're part of a business that's not producing, that's a problem. If you're part of a team and you're not producing, the coaches are going to have a problem with you. If you've got a product and it's not producing the sales that you need or expect, that's a problem. We live in a results-driven culture. Get it done. And there's quality to that. However, We got to be really careful with this when it comes to the kingdom of heaven. Because in the kingdom of heaven, you and I, we never bring results, ever. That's up to the Lord. Our job is faithfulness. His job is the fruit. With whatever we've been given, whatever you as an individual have been given, your strengths, your talents, your gifts, your experiences, your money, your resources, your time, your relationships, our church, you're called to be faithful with that, to steward it, invest it in a way that will just blow our minds. If we're faithful with that, we can't even imagine what God will do with it. Jesus said the first two servants were faithful with a little. They were faithful with a little. But so often we go to a much. Like, I just want more. Like, I want to lead big things. I want to have more influence. I want to be in charge of more stuff. If I had more money, if I had more gifts, if I had more time, then I would take that stuff, I would plant it, and we would have a massive forest. Usually that's an excuse that we have. We think, I don't have what I need. I don't have enough. I'm not talented enough. I need more of this. And once I have more of this, then I'll invest it. Then I'll be faithful with it. Then I'll plant it. And if that's your thought process, let me just be really direct with you. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. You know why I know that? Because if you're not faithful with what you have right now, why would you be faithful when you get more? What you're doing right now is an indicator of future success, future faithfulness. Forget what you don't have or what you think you need. Everything that God has given you in your life, everything that you have, God has given you. Invest, be faithful, plant that. And according to Jesus, more is going to come later. We always start with a little, never a lot. But if you focus on a lot, you're going to get distracted from the little you have. And if you're distracted from the little you have, you'll never experience a lot. But just remember, a forest starts with seeds, not full-grown trees. If we're faithful, if we're urgent, if we're investing what God has given us, you as an individual, me as an individual, and then us as a church, that's how we plant a forest. And then we get to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. So just go with me here for a second. Think about this. Think about everything that you've ever wanted to hear from somebody in your life. Like maybe you wanted to hear your dad tell you how proud he was of you. Like maybe you've never really heard how deeply your spouse cares for you and you're longing for that. Maybe you've wanted a friend to tell you how valuable you are to them. Like take everything that you've ever wanted to hear from another person. Now combine that with what you have heard. Anything good that you've heard about you in your life. Whether that's a little, maybe you've only heard a little bit, maybe you've heard a lot. Take everything that you have heard that's good, combine that with everything that you do want to hear, and that won't even come close, not even remotely close to how amazing and awesome it'll be to stand in front of Jesus, look him in the eyes, and hear him say to you, well done, good and faithful servant, welcome home. I want you to hear that. I want to hear that. Here's what I think is going to happen after that. Based on who God is and his character, what I think he's going to do is after he tells you that, I think what he's going to say to you is turn around and look. Because you were faithful with what I gave you, because you invested it, because you risked it, because you were urgent, look at the forest that I planted. In northern Colorado, you know what that forest is going to look like? The forest that we're trying to plant right now. It's going to look like salvations that we never could have imagined. Man, this is a hard place where we live. It's hard. So why would God not do something big here? Why would he not start here? The forest that we're planting, what it's going to look like is salvations. People coming, not only they experience the love of Jesus, but they become followers of Jesus all over northern Colorado. If God told us today the number of people that's going to represent, we wouldn't believe him. It's going to be so crazy, so big. The forest that we look like, the forest that we plant, is going to look like personal growth, that families are changed, generations are changed, so that more and more people follow Jesus boldly, unapologetically, with humility and compassion, well after we're dead and gone here. The forest that we're planting right now, what it's gonna look like is laughter is gonna replace silence and arguments at the family dinner table. The forest that we're planting right now, what it's gonna look like is it's gonna change the trajectory of kids and students. Because I think right now, nobody's excited about what our kids and our students are facing, right? Nobody's excited what your grandkids are gonna face down the road. The trajectory doesn't look good, but the forest that we're planting in northern Colorado, it's gonna look so different for kids, where kids and students are gonna thrive here. The forest that we're planting right now is gonna change the scene for addiction, where addiction rates will be some of the lowest in the country here in northern Colorado because of the forest that we're planting. Not only are we gonna take care of people that still have issues and need help with that, because that's always gonna exist, but we're also gonna be on the preventive side. Abuse rates, domestic abuse rates, suicide rates will be low here compared to national average. The divorce rate in northern Colorado will actually be the lowest in the country. That's what the forest that we're planting is gonna look like. It's also gonna look like every kid here is gonna have a godly man, whether it's their dad or somebody else, a godly man in their life, because our kids need that right now, guys. What the forest that we're planting is gonna look like is we're just gonna continue to give away more and more and more stuff, so where all churches around here are blessed, all churches do better, all churches continue to thrive, where we become a united force, where this looks different here than anywhere else in the country. The forest that we're planting right now, churches get planted all over the United States, all over the world. To that's just scratching the surface of what this forest is gonna look like. And to all of that, that's how we'll see, that's how we'll hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Let's go.
LifeBridge, let's stand and let's worship together. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, or depths of peace, when fears are still, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. Whoa. give him praise this morning, everybody. So great to be with you. Don't forget, we have a Go Ministries event that's happening right after the service just across the hall over here. We'd love for you to join us. Join Matt across the hall in the Fellowship Center right now. That would be great. We'd love to spend some time with you. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.